In this module, we'll describe the components and operation of the air conditioning system. We will describe the air conditioning packs and their modes of operation. We will describe the operation of the main components within the air conditioning packs. The function of each control on the air conditioning panel will be stated. The functions of the auto shut-off and ram air controls on the ram air panel will be described. Finally, system faults and procedures to deal with them will be described. We will begin this section by looking at the sources of air for the air conditioning system. Bleed air from the engines is the principal source for the air conditioning system. On the ground, the APU supplies bleed air. Conditioned air from a ground unit may be supplied to the distribution system via the low-pressure ground connection. Ram air can be introduced into the distribution system during unpressurized flights. A pack valve in the duct to each air conditioning pack has the function of shutting bleed air off. The pack valves open when pressure in the duct is greater than 10 psi, provided that the system is switched on. The air conditioning systems maintain a constant mass airflow reflecting altitude and temperature changes. Next, we will look at the way in which conditioned air is distributed. The air conditioning packs are referred to as Packs 1 and 2. Pack 1 serves the flight deck and Pack 2 serves the cabin. Conditioned air from both packs flows into the common duct. 30% of conditioned air is ducted to the flight deck. This is the case since the ducts to the flight deck receive bleed air through a narrower tapping than the cabin duct. The wider tapping to the cabin duct allows 70% of air into the cabin duct. A single pack can meet all the air conditioning and pressurization requirements of the aircraft. Let us next look at the air conditioning outlets on the flight deck. There is one adjustable outlet in the ceiling. The outlets for the captain and first officer and those on the side wall are also adjustable. Floor ventilation through two outlets is controlled by levers on the respective side panel. In addition, there are two non-adjustable outlets at the pedestal. 4 recirculation fans located in the ceiling of the passenger compartment recirculate cabin air to the common duct, where it is mixed with conditioned air. Let us now consider the controls and indications in the air conditioning panel. The temperature display shows either the temperature of the flight deck supply, the cabin, or the cabin supply. Rotating the display selector to one of the 3 positions brings up the corresponding temperature on the temperature display. Should the automatic temperature control function fail, the temperature can be controlled manually in either system by selecting the appropriate push button to Manual. The temperature selectors for the flight deck and cabin allow the temperature of either system to be varied between 15 and 29 degrees centigrade in manual or automatic operation. The 4 recirculation fans are always on to augment the flow of conditioned air. The left-hand push button allows fans 1 and 3 to be switched off, while the right-hand push button controls fans 2 and 4. The fans can be switched off by pressing the push buttons, for example in the event of cabin smoke. In case of a pack fault, the related push button shows a fault indication. Economy mode may be selected manually using the economy push button. The use of economy mode during APU operation reduces APU fuel consumption and turbine gas temperature. During takeoff, economy mode is selected automatically. In flight, use of the economy mode reduces fuel consumption by approximately 0.5%. Normal flow is restored approximately 1 minute after liftoff, except when maximum takeoff is selected. In this case, economy flow is maintained. The augmented mode is operative when one pack is manually switched off. The remaining pack valve opens fully to allow maximum bleed air into the functioning pack to ensure sufficient supply. Next, we will look at the ram air panel located on the overhead panel. First, we will consider the operation of the auto-shut mechanism. Auto-shut-off of both packs occurs on the ground during engine start or when both thrust reversers are unlocked. Auto-shut-off also occurs if an engine fails during takeoff or in flight below 13,500 feet with a takeoff thrust lever setting selected. Pack operation is automatically restored above 13,500 feet. In case of an auto shut-off due to engine failure, pack operation can be manually restored by pressing the auto shut push button. Ram air can be introduced into the system during unpressurized flights. Pressing the ram air push button will cause an on light to appear and the ram air valve will start to open. When the valve is fully open, the push button shows both on and open. We will now describe the principal components within the air conditioning pack. Only Pack 2 intake has a connection allowing ram air into the system for unpressurized flight. Otherwise, both packs are identical. The ram air valve is controlled by the ram air push button. The pack valve in each system controls the flow of bleed air into each pack. They are spring-loaded to shut their position to maintain constant mass airflow for altitude and temperature changes. When the pack valves are open, hot bleed air is ducted through them. The air then enters the heat exchangers. Ram air enters the intakes and pre-cools the bleed air at the heat exchangers. Ram air then passes through the air cycle machines and leaves via the outlets. Bleed air is further cooled by the air cycle machines and ducted to the hot air mixing ducts. The temperature control valves open to allow hot bleed air to be mixed with cooled bleed air in the hot air mixing ducts. The temperature selectors control the valve position, which in turn controls the flow of hot air to the mixing duct. Bleed air flows into the common duct past check valves that prevent reverse airflow. The last point to note is that conditioned air may be supplied to the flight deck and cabin from a ground supply via a connection to the common duct. We will begin this section by considering how the temperature may be controlled at the air conditioning panel. If the temperature is too low, it may be increased by rotating the temperature selector clockwise. The temperature control valve will then open to allow uncooled bleed air into the mixing duct. Please increase cabin temperature. When the cabin temperature has increased to the desired level, the control valves are modulated to maintain the selected level. There is no fault indication if the automatic temperature control fails. The only indication is a higher or lower than expected temperature. For example, if the temperature selector has been turned to cold and the cabin temperature has remained high, it would be necessary to switch to manual control. Please switch to manual control. With the cabin supply switched to manual, the temperature can be controlled using the temperature selector. In this case, if the temperature continues to decrease, it will be necessary to stabilize it by means of the selector. Please stabilize the cabin temperature. No, please stabilize the cabin temperature. The cabin temperature has now stabilized at 22 degrees centigrade. but further regulation using the selector may be necessary. Next, we will consider the flow of conditioned air during the different stages of flight. When the APU is supplying air, the air conditioning is in normal mode. Selecting economy mode reduces APU fuel consumption and turbine gas temperature. During engine start, auto shutoff operates and the packs are shut off. As long as the thrust levers are below the minimum takeoff position, thrust lever movement has no effect on the mode of operation. Automatic econ selection is achieved by placing the thrust levers at the minimum takeoff position. Normal flow is restored 1 minute after liftoff unless the thrust levers are at the maximum forward position, in which case low flow is maintained. When the thrust reversers are unlocked, auto shutoff operates. Normal flow is selected after the thrust levers have been retracted, regardless of APU operating status. During a go-around, Econ is automatically selected upon toga trigger for 50 seconds for the Tay 650. Thrust lever has no effect, except in max forward position, in which low flow will be maintained. Next, we will consider the situation when an engine fails in flight. Below 13,500 feet, and with the thrust levers above the minimum takeoff setting, auto shutoff operates. If single engine performance is not critical, air conditioning supply can be regained by selecting auto shutoff to off. Above 13,500 feet, and with the thrust levers above minimum takeoff, economy flow is automatically selected. Let us first consider a fault in a single pack. This gives rise to a Level 1 alert. In flight, an alert message appears in the left-hand MFDU and a procedure in the right-hand MFDU. The pack valve to the affected pack is closed automatically. Switching the push button off establishes the augmented mode in the functioning pack. Switch Pack 2 off. The Pack 2 push button now displays the off message, and Pack 1 is operating in augmented mode. Now follow the procedure to restore Pack 2. If the procedure is unsuccessful and the faulty pack has not been restored to operation, it should be switched off. Follow the procedure again to switch Pack 2 off. Pack 2 has been selected to off and Pack 1 is functioning in augmented mode. Remember that a single pack can meet all air conditioning and pressurization requirements. The alert for a single pack fault is inhibited in the phases of flight shown. Waiting approximately 2 minutes before resetting allows the pack to cool if the fault is caused by overheat. A double pack failure triggers a Level 2 alert. A double chime sounds and both pack push buttons indicate a fault. An alert message appears in the left-hand MFDU and a procedure in the right-hand MFDU. In this case, both pack valves are shut. The procedure states that both packs should be switched off and then on again. If this fails, both packs should be switched off and the procedure for unpressurized flight followed. The procedure stated in the Quick Reference Handbook should be followed. Once safe conditions for unpressurized flight exist, ram air may be introduced into the air system. Ram air may be used for flight deck and cabin ventilation on unpressurized flights. Open the ram air valve. On pressing the ram air push button, the push button first displays the on message. Once the valve has moved to the fully open position, the open message appears on the push button. The alerts associated with a double pack fault are inhibited in the phases of flight shown. Air for the air conditioning system is supplied by bleed air from the engines or from the APU or from a ground supply. The flight deck outlets were identified as follows: captain, first officer, sidewalls, ceiling, floor, pedestal. We listed the functions of the controls and indicators on the air conditioning panel. We described the functions of the controls on the ram air panel. The components of the air conditioning packs were described together with their functions. The modes of conditioned airflow during the phases of flight were stated. Finally, we described the alerts and procedures associated with single and double pack faults.